One quiet night, strange lights appeared in the sky, moving in patterns that no plane or satellite could make. People across the world looked up, their hearts racing with fear and wonder, unsure of what they were seeing. The lights grew brighter, descending slowly until they revealed a group of alien ships landing gently on the outskirts of a city. Panic spread quickly. Most governments ordered people to stay indoors, military forces were placed on high alert, and news channels broadcast warnings of a possible invasion. Rumors and fear raced faster than the lights themselves, and many people whispered that the aliens were here to attack, to take, or to destroy. Yet, amid the chaos and fear, a small group of humans, scientists, volunteers, and those with quiet courage, decided to act differently. They could have stayed back, hiding behind walls and protocols, but something inside them refused to turn away from what needed help. Carefully, they approached the landing site, feeling a mixture of excitement, anxiety, and responsibility. The air was filled with tension, a mixture of awe and uncertainty as they stepped closer to beings that were completely unknown. The aliens did not move aggressively. Instead, they seemed confused, weak, and in need of care, their movements hesitant, as though they were afraid of what they might encounter on this strange planet. The humans noticed immediately that fear did not come from the aliens, but from those around them, from the expectations of the world to see threats where there might be none. Each step toward the aliens was measured, each gesture cautious, yet compassionate, a silent message that humanity could choose empathy over suspicion. The scientists documented everything, the volunteers offered blankets and food, and together they formed a bridge between worlds, showing the first signs of trust in a situation where distrust could easily have ruled. People nearby watched in awe, some fearful, some inspired, wondering if these humans were foolish or brave, not realizing that the courage of a few could shape the future of many. The night was tense, filled with quiet questions and unspoken worries, but the humans did not retreat. They stood at a crossroads, literally and figuratively, representing the choice that humanity often faces, to respond to fear with fear, or to respond to the unknown with understanding and kindness. As the lights of the alien ships glowed softly against the dark sky, the first fragile bond was formed. In that moment, it became clear that the story of what would happen next depended not on weapons, politics, or panic, but on the courage, compassion, and humanity of those willing to see beyond fear and act with care. This was the beginning of something extraordinary, a night when humans chose to be brave, not just for themselves, but for beings who had nowhere else to turn, setting the stage for a tale of hope, empathy, and the quiet heroism that could change the course of history. After the aliens had landed and the initial panic had begun to settle, a small team of scientists approached cautiously, their eyes wide with both fear and fascination. The creatures they faced were unlike anything they had seen before, their shapes and features unfamiliar, their movements hesitant and slow, as if every step required careful thought. It quickly became clear that they were injured. Some limped slightly, others held what looked like wounds that glowed faintly, and their eyes reflected confusion and fear. The world outside the landing site remained tense, with military forces on standby and news reports spreading warnings and speculation, but within this quiet circle, something different was happening. Most people would have turned away, either out of fear or disbelief, yet one human, calm, deliberate, and driven by compassion, decided to bridge the gap. This person carried a small bag of supplies, bandages, clean cloths, and water, and knelt, slowly, speaking in gentle tones, showing through actions rather than words that the aliens were not being threatened. At first, the aliens recoiled slightly, unsure whether this human meant harm or help, but patience and care gradually overcame their fear. The scientists watched closely, documenting the interactions, but it was the human's courage and quiet empathy that began to change everything. Every gesture mattered, a hand extended without aggression, a soft step forward instead of a rush, a careful movement to offer assistance without touching abruptly. Slowly, trust began to form, a fragile thread between species that had never met before. The aliens started responding in small ways, some mimicking the humans' motions, others letting the humans approach closer, and tiny sparks of understanding appeared in their eyes. Observing this, the little group of humans realized how rare this moment was, how easily it could have gone wrong, and how crucial compassion and bravery were in shaping the outcome. Outside, the world continued to judge and speculate, yet here, a story of human courage was quietly unfolding, proving that fear could be overcome with empathy. The scientist team discussed strategies in hushed tones, while the human at the center of it all kept the focus on the aliens' immediate needs, ignoring politics, judgment, and the threat of ridicule. Every careful word, every intentional pause, every act of gentle assistance was teaching both humans and aliens a lesson. That connection was possible even in the most unfamiliar circumstances. By the end of the long night, small but significant, progress had been made. The aliens were calmer, more willing to communicate, and the humans had learned that courage was not about grand gestures or weapons, but about choosing to step forward when others turned away, about showing care in the face of fear, and about being willing to reach across an impossible divide. In that quiet moment, the first spark of trust had been ignited, signaling the start of a story that could redefine humanity, not through domination or power, but through empathy, patience, and the simple yet extraordinary act of helping those who could not help themselves. Even as the first contact with the aliens showed promise, the larger world remained skeptical and fearful. Governments issued statements warning citizens to stay away from the landing site, citing potential risks, unknown diseases, and the dangers of interacting with extraterrestrial life. Borders were tightened, and media outlets broadcast conflicting reports, some warning of invasion, others mocking those who dared to help the aliens. Social media erupted with fear, anger, and ridicule. Memes circulated making fun of the humans who stepped forward to offer care. Comments criticized them for being naive or reckless, and some people even threatened them online. Despite all this, the small group of humans continued their work, moving carefully among the aliens, providing food, warmth, and reassurance. Each step forward was weighed with caution, but they refused to stop. They faced threats, both subtle and direct, and sometimes felt the sting of isolation, knowing that almost the entire world questioned their actions. Friends and colleagues began to distance themselves, worried about social backlash or political consequences, leaving the group feeling alone against a tide of suspicion. Yet each human involved understood that fear should not guide their actions. They knew that empathy and moral courage were more important than approval or safety in this moment. They reminded one another of why they were there. Not for recognition, not for headlines, but because the aliens needed help and someone had to act when the rest of the world refused. Every challenge reinforced their determination, showing them that real courage often comes when others doubt you or call you foolish. At night, when the lights of the alien ships glowed softly in the dark sky, the humans would quietly discuss strategies, comfort one another, and prepare for the next day, aware that their actions were being watched, judged, and misunderstood. They felt the weight of responsibility not just to the aliens, but to the idea of what humanity could be, capable of empathy, bravery, and kindness even when society discouraged it. The little moments mattered, feeding a scared alien, cleaning minor injuries, and speaking softly to calm panic. Each act, though small, became an assertion that compassion was stronger than fear. Over time, the humans began to notice that some people were quietly watching, learning from their example, and slowly, the ridicule was being replaced by curiosity and hope. The doubtful world outside might not yet understand, but inside the circle of trust and courage forming around the aliens, humanity was showing its best face, one not driven by politics, social pressure, or self-interest, but by the fundamental choice to do what was right. It was a lesson that even when the majority rejects empathy, the determination of a few can spark change, create understanding, and begin a story that could eventually redefine how the world sees courage, compassion, and what it truly means to act as human beings when confronted with the unknown. Over time, the aliens began to show signs of trust toward the humans who had stayed by their side despite ridicule, threats, and fear. It was a slow process. At first, the aliens only allowed small interactions, accepting food or water, letting humans approach cautiously, and responding to gentle gestures without fear. The humans were patient, understanding that trust could not be rushed and that any sudden move might undo weeks of careful effort. Gradually, communication grew stronger. Through gestures, drawings, and simple sounds, the aliens began to convey more about themselves, their culture, and the dangers that had driven them to Earth. They revealed that their home planet was no longer safe, destroyed by a threat far greater than any human had faced. They shared glimpses of technology that was advanced beyond human understanding, energy systems that could provide power without harm, medical devices capable of repairing injuries almost instantly, and navigation tools that could explore planets in ways humans had only dreamed of. The humans listened in awe, careful not to take anything for granted, realizing that this knowledge came with responsibility. Helping these aliens was no longer just an act of kindness. It had become a matter of survival for both species. They understood that if humans approached the situation recklessly, it could endanger lives on both sides. But if handled wisely, it could create a partnership that would change the course of history. The fragile alliance relied on respect, patience, and empathy. Each act of care by the humans reinforced trust, and each small gesture of understanding from the aliens encouraged them to share more. They taught the humans about their needs, about the dangers that followed them, and about how to avoid triggers that could cause panic or aggression. In return, the humans showed compassion, listened attentively, and adapted their actions to meet the aliens where they were emotionally and physically. The tension remained, of course. Outside forces still mistrusted the aliens, and many people continued to spread fear or demand the alliance be broken. Yet within the circle of trust, a remarkable thing was happening. Humans and aliens were learning to cooperate, not because of obligation or necessity, but because of mutual understanding. The humans began to see that empathy could lead to knowledge, and knowledge could lead to survival. This fragile alliance was more than a truce. It was a living example of how compassion, patience, and careful action could bridge unimaginable differences. It showed that helping others, even when the world doubts you, could produce results far beyond expectation. As the aliens slowly opened up, revealing the challenges they had endured and the wonders of their technology, the humans felt the weight of their role. They were no longer just observers or helpers. They were partners in a delicate balance that could decide the future of two species. Each shared secret, each cautious exchange, strengthened the fragile alliance, proving that courage combined with empathy could create bonds strong enough to withstand fear, suspicion, and uncertainty, and that the smallest acts of understanding could become the foundation for something extraordinary. As the fragile alliance between humans and aliens began to strengthen, new challenges emerged that threatened to undo all the progress they had made. Authorities from several nations, fearful of the unknown and worried about political consequences, began to intervene. Orders were given to shut down the operations, citing protocols, safety concerns, and the potential risks of allowing aliens to remain on Earth. Suddenly, supplies that had once been delivered freely, medical kits, food, and protective equipment were delayed, cut off, or confiscated entirely. Labs where the humans had been studying and helping the aliens were raided, sensitive notes seized, and communication attempts with the outside world blocked. The team faced intense pressure from officials who viewed their actions as reckless or dangerous, while social media and news outlets amplified public skepticism, spreading doubt about their intentions and questioning whether helping the aliens was worth the risk. Even with all these obstacles, the human team refused to abandon the aliens, knowing that hesitation or fear could have devastating consequences. Every day became a careful balancing act, moving supplies without attracting unwanted attention, planning medical care in secret, and finding ways to communicate with the aliens without causing panic. The aliens, sensing the tension and confusion, grew anxious at times, their trust tested as much by external forces as by their own fear of the unknown. The humans worked tirelessly to reassure them, using gentle gestures, calm voices, and patient explanations, proving again that empathy and understanding could bridge gaps even in the face of danger. Bureaucracy, skepticism, and public scrutiny pressed heavily on the team, but they adapted, learning to navigate obstacles with creativity, resourcefulness, and quiet courage. Each setback became a lesson, teaching them resilience, teamwork, and the importance of focus under pressure. They discovered ways to share knowledge with the aliens without drawing attention, and they developed new methods to provide medical care using minimal resources, proving that human ingenuity could overcome restrictions imposed by fear and misunderstanding. Despite exhaustion and frustration, the team's determination never wavered. They understood that abandoning the aliens was not an option, that their moral responsibility outweighed political threats, criticism, or inconvenience. Even when officials demanded immediate compliance, the humans calmly explained, argued, and negotiated, always keeping the aliens' safety at the forefront. The situation became a test of values: fear versus compassion, compliance versus courage, and personal safety versus moral duty. In these tense days, the humans learned that heroism is rarely glamorous. It is quiet, relentless, and often invisible to the world. By facing bureaucracy, threats, and doubt head-on, the team strengthened the fragile alliance and demonstrated that when guided by empathy and purpose, humanity could rise above fear and obstacles, creating hope even in the most uncertain and challenging circumstances, and proving that courage and care could protect not just lives, but the future of understanding between worlds. Amid the chaos and constant obstacles, a sudden crisis arose that would test the courage of the human team like never before. A section of the structure where the aliens were taking shelter began to collapse unexpectedly, the metal groaning and concrete cracking under pressure. Panic swept through the group as the aliens, frightened and injured, froze in place, unsure of what to do. The humans faced a critical choice: retreat to safety or risk everything to save the helpless creatures they had sworn to protect. Without hesitation, one member of the team acted, moving forward into the unstable debris. Carefully, yet with urgency, they reached the injured alien, supporting its fragile body as dust and rubble fell around them. Every step was dangerous. Every second counted. The structure shifted dangerously, threatening to trap them both, yet the human refused to turn back, relying on quick thinking, determination, and the trust built over weeks of careful interaction. Those watching, including other team members and the terrified aliens, held their breath, feeling the tension of a moment where bravery outweighed fear. With great effort, the human managed to bring the alien to a safe area, just as part of the structure collapsed behind them, sending dust and fragments into the air. The act of selflessness left everyone shaken yet inspired, demonstrating the quiet power of courage in action. The aliens, sensing the depth of care and risk taken for them, began to respond with trust and gratitude in ways the humans had never seen before, forming an emotional bond that transcended species. News of the rescue spread slowly at first, leaking through cautious channels and hesitant media outlets. The world began to hear of a human who risked life and limb not for fame, money, or recognition, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Small communities and individuals started to notice, inspired by the tangible example of personal sacrifice, realizing that heroism often begins with small, deliberate choices rather than grand gestures. The courage of one person sparked hope and admiration, quietly shifting perspectives among people who had previously doubted the human's mission. Within the team, morale was strengthened as they saw that dedication and bravery could indeed make a difference, even under extreme pressure. The injured alien, now safe and recovering, became a living testament to what compassion combined with risk could accomplish. This event reinforced the understanding that helping others, especially those who cannot help themselves, requires both heart and action. The rescue highlighted the fragile yet powerful connection forming between humans and aliens, showing that empathy was not abstract. It had real consequences, capable of saving lives and inspiring change. In that tense, dust-filled moment, humanity had shown its best qualities: courage, selflessness, and the willingness to act despite fear. The lessons spread quietly but deeply. True heroism is measured not by applause or recognition, but by the sacrifices one makes to protect others, and that even a single act of bravery can ignite hope in the hearts of many, slowly transforming fear into respect, mistrust into trust, and doubt into belief in the power of humanity to do what is right. After the daring rescue of the injured alien, news of the human team's bravery began to spread. First quietly among local communities, and then more widely through cautious media coverage and word of mouth. People who had once been skeptical or fearful started to see the situation differently. Ordinary citizens, scientists, and volunteers realized that the aliens were not invaders, but creatures in need, and that helping them was not only possible but meaningful. Slowly, a movement began to take shape. People offered medical supplies, food, blankets, and even safe spaces where the aliens could rest and recover. Some provided transportation, others volunteered to document their progress, and many simply offered encouragement to the small team that had risked everything. The human team, once isolated and ridiculed, now found themselves surrounded by a growing network of support, each person contributing in their own way. The aliens, sensing the change, became more relaxed and willing to communicate, responding to gestures and words with curiosity and trust. The energy of cooperation spread through the group like ripples in water. What began as the courage of a few individuals had inspired an entire community to take action, proving that kindness and bravery are contagious. People who had watched from a distance started to question their own fear and hesitation, realizing that standing by could allow suffering to continue, while stepping forward could create hope. The story of one person risking life to save an alien became a symbol of what humans were capable of when guided by empathy and moral courage. With each new volunteer, the humans were able to provide better care, repair damaged facilities, and strengthen communication with the aliens, building trust and understanding. Meetings were held to coordinate supplies, safety, and education, ensuring that everyone's actions contributed to a greater goal. Slowly, even those who had been most doubtful began to reconsider their stance, observing that fear had given way to collaboration and that collective effort could accomplish what seemed impossible alone. The atmosphere shifted from tension and suspicion to purpose and hope. People began to see themselves not just as bystanders, but as active participants in a story that mattered, one that could define humanity's response to the unknown. The aliens, once nervous and defensive, started exploring the human camp, showing signs of learning and adapting as humans responded with patience and care. Through these interactions, both sides gained confidence and security, and the humans began to understand that empathy could create bonds stronger than fear. The ripple effect was clear. One act of courage had ignited another, and that act inspired yet another, until entire neighborhoods and communities were stepping forward to help. In the midst of fear, skepticism, and uncertainty, humanity had shown its capacity to unite, to act selflessly, and to rise above prejudice. The small circle of brave humans had grown into a network of compassion, proving that courage, empathy, and cooperation can spread like wildfire, inspiring others to follow and showing the world that even in the face of doubt and danger, human kindness can create lasting change, building a foundation for trust, understanding, and hope that could reach far beyond the immediate crisis. As the fragile bond between humans and aliens grew stronger, the aliens began to share pieces of their advanced knowledge, starting with medical techniques that were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They demonstrated ways to heal injuries almost instantly, using methods that combined precision, energy, and care, showing humans that science and empathy could work together to save lives. Humans watched carefully, taking notes, practicing under guidance, and learning not only the techniques but also the thoughtfulness behind them, how every gesture mattered, how calm presence could soothe pain and fear. The aliens also revealed technology that could improve life on Earth, energy sources that were clean and sustainable, tools that could monitor health and environment efficiently, and communication systems that were faster and safer than anything humans had developed. For the first time, humanity could see that cooperation across worlds was not just possible, but beneficial for everyone. There was a sense of wonder and excitement, but also caution. The humans realized that knowledge carried responsibility. It could heal and improve life, but if misused, it could also cause harm. Tension began to rise as certain groups and factions outside the circle of trust saw the aliens' abilities as a chance to gain power or advantage. Some argued for strict control over the aliens, while others suggested exploiting their technology for profit or military use. These differing opinions created a moral dilemma for the human team: how to protect the aliens while allowing the shared knowledge to be used wisely and for the common good. The humans discussed the dilemma in careful, thoughtful meetings, weighing ethical responsibility against fear, greed, and political pressure. They understood that every decision could affect not only the aliens' safety, but the future of humanity as well. The aliens, sensing the humans' struggle, continued to teach patiently, emphasizing empathy, caution, and respect. They showed that understanding and cooperation could bridge enormous differences, but that trust must be preserved. Slowly, the human team began implementing the new techniques, first helping injured volunteers and aliens alike, and then testing sustainable energy systems that could benefit their communities. Small successes proved that the knowledge was powerful when used with care, and word of these successes spread quietly, inspiring others to focus on collaboration rather than control. Yet the outside world remained skeptical. Rumors and political debates continued, with some seeing the alliance as dangerous, while others admired the courage and foresight of those acting with compassion. This created constant pressure on the humans, who had to protect both the aliens and the fragile trust that allowed knowledge to flow freely. They realized that progress required patience, moral clarity, and unwavering commitment to empathy. As humans and aliens continued to work side by side, learning from one another, a new understanding began to emerge: that true advancement is not measured by power or control, but by how cooperation, compassion, and careful stewardship can create outcomes that benefit everyone. In this delicate balance, humanity discovered that listening, observing, and acting with care could turn fear and suspicion into trust, and that knowledge shared with empathy could become the foundation for a future where both species could survive, thrive, and grow together. Just when trust and cooperation between humans and aliens seemed to be growing, a sudden crisis erupted that threatened everyone involved. A natural disaster, unlike anything experienced on Earth, struck near the alien landing site. A massive earthquake shook the ground, toppling structures, rupturing roads, and endangering both humans and aliens. Panic swept through the surrounding areas as people scrambled for safety, while the aliens, still fragile and vulnerable, froze in confusion and fear. The human team, who had once acted alone against ridicule and skepticism, now found themselves at the center of a moment that demanded leadership, courage, and quick thinking. They organized emergency efforts, coordinating with volunteers, scientists, and citizens who had joined their cause, forming a united front in the face of chaos. Every action mattered: moving aliens to safer ground, stabilizing damaged shelters, distributing medical supplies, and guiding frightened humans through the rubble. Communication became critical, and the lessons learned from patience, empathy, and careful observation allowed the humans to act effectively under immense pressure. As they worked tirelessly, the wider society watched closely. People who had been skeptical or fearful began to see that when humans stand together with courage and moral clarity, they can overcome challenges that seem impossible. Slowly, the story of cooperation spread beyond the immediate crisis, inspiring communities to assist with rescue efforts, share resources, and support those at risk. The aliens, witnessing the humans' dedication and bravery, became more trusting, even helping in small ways to stabilize structures or communicate hazards. The crisis highlighted a profound truth: humanity's strength is not in weapons, rules, or fear, but in courage, empathy, and the ability to act selflessly for the greater good. Yet the danger was far from over. Aftershocks continued to shake the ground, threatening both life and the fragile alliance that had been built over months. Every decision carried weight. Hesitation could lead to loss, while decisive action could save countless lives. The humans demonstrated remarkable resilience, coordinating teams, improvising solutions, and reassuring both aliens and citizens alike. In these tense hours, the united effort became a symbol of what humans could achieve when fear was replaced with purpose and courage. Ordinary people contributed alongside scientists and volunteers, showing that heroism is not reserved for a few, but arises when everyone chooses to act with integrity and compassion. The disaster forced society to decide whether to stand together or apart, and the response revealed humanity's capacity for collaboration and moral strength. By the end of the crisis, lives were saved, trust deepened, and the aliens had witnessed firsthand that humans could be protectors and allies, not just observers. This turning point marked a new chapter, proving that when courage triumphs over fear and empathy guides action, humanity can rise above doubt, prejudice, and danger, creating a foundation for hope, cooperation, and a future where beings of different worlds can survive and thrive together. Years after the events that had once filled the world with fear and uncertainty, the story of humanity's courage and compassion lived on as a defining moment in history. The aliens, once frightened and injured, had been healed and integrated safely into communities that had learned to see them not as strangers or threats, but as beings worthy of care, respect, and friendship. The humans who had risked so much, those who had stepped forward when others turned away, were remembered not for fame or reward, but for the quiet heroism of their choices. Their actions had demonstrated that empathy, bravery, and moral courage could inspire hope across not just one city or nation, but across worlds. People reflected on how small, determined acts of kindness had sparked a ripple effect that changed the course of history. Ordinary citizens had joined in, volunteers had shared their skills and resources, and scientists had collaborated with patience and care, creating a network of cooperation that proved humanity was capable of remarkable unity. The aliens, now thriving and able to contribute knowledge and culture in safe and respectful ways, had become symbols of trust and connection. Schools taught the story as an example of moral courage and the power of helping others even when the world doubts you. Communities celebrated the anniversary of first contact, not as a tale of fear or conflict, but as a moment when humans chose to act with heart instead of hesitation, when compassion overcame suspicion. Older generations shared the story with younger ones, emphasizing that greatness is not always measured by power, wealth, or technology, but by the choices people make when others need them most. Museums displayed artifacts and messages from the aliens, while public discussions focused on lessons of ethics, empathy, and courage. Researchers who had once felt isolated now spoke confidently of the potential for cooperation between humans and other intelligent beings, inspired by the legacy left by the brave few who acted without hesitation. Even as time passed, the emotional impact of those events remained vivid. The world had seen that fear could be replaced by hope, mistrust by trust, and isolation by community. The story reminded humanity that standing by when danger or uncertainty arises is easy, but stepping forward requires real courage. And that courage, combined with empathy, can change lives, societies, and even worlds. People reflected quietly on the fragile beginnings, on the first human who had risked everything to help, on the many who joined afterward, and on the aliens who had responded with trust and cooperation. It became clear that the legacy was not just about saving a few lives, but about demonstrating humanity's true capacity for greatness, the ability to act with moral clarity, to overcome fear, and to extend compassion beyond boundaries, species, or personal comfort. In the end, the tale was celebrated as proof that when humans act with courage and empathy, even the most impossible challenges can be met, and that one small act of care can ignite hope that lasts for generations, inspiring a world, and perhaps worlds beyond, to believe in the best of what humanity can be.